Hi everyone, loving greetings, Sairam, and humble pranams to all of you from Perth, Western Australia. My name is Gauri, and I'm here to share with you how quantum gazing has changed my life in so many ways. Connie, Jim, without without the beautiful work that you do with quantum gazing, many of us would still be lost. Many of us may still be desperately seeking healing from one door to another. Yet you gave us so much from just a gaze. Thank you. Thank you. I started gazing in early 2012. It's given me clarity in life at so many levels. And with that clarity came understanding and acceptance. With acceptance came strength. With strength came peace, bliss, and happiness. Today I'd like to share a story relating to our little baby boy, Joshua. Now this relates to a gazing session held around March, April of 2014. The sessions prior to this one helped me escape from a rather long, agonizing, toxic relationship, clearing the pathway to bring Richie into my life in 2013. By now, I was 37 years old. I've always wanted to get married and settle down and have a family, but also very aware that the Big Ben inside me was going on overdrive. Though I had met someone amazing, it was still early days, and my hopes of ever having children were fading away. Sadly, I prayed for strength to cope with childlessness instead. I surrendered everything that may come with this new relationship at God's feet, be it marriage, children, whatever that was meant to be. Now, as the session began, my eyes started becoming very heavy and they eventually closed. I wasn't able to focus directly on Connie's eyes anymore because I was being taken into a meditative trance-like state. I was very aware of the external world but had absolutely no control over the energy that was gradually just weaving into me like a warm electric wave through every nerve. It was strong, it was uplifting, it was beautiful, and I was seated in a lotus meditative pose, with palms facing up. I then realized that my right palm had risen a little bit above my folded knee. It kept rising and rising and rising. Now, eventually, to almost about 15 centimeters or so above the knee. I felt so much energy going through me, it just wasn't funny anymore. Having attended many sessions, gazing sessions by now, I was very familiar with such energy, so I allowed myself to safely succumb to it. Now, as my right hand remained afloat with palms facing up, I felt a weight being put upon both palms as though someone was handing over something for me to hold, like this. Here, hold it. Now, as the weight fully rested into my hands, I felt a beautiful bodily warmth of a baby. The head resting on my elevated right palm and the baby's soft bottom on my left, and it was just surreal. It was as though I could feel a little being, its warm blood and spirit in the folds of my very hands. I could feel the purity of this child, a certain connection. Again, I was thinking, how could this be? With no marriage proposal in sight and my, graceful ripe old age. I wondered if this was my ego's wishful thinking for a child even. I also wondered, were others in the room watching me, as I was in this act, which I cannot seemingly control? I just couldn't bring my hand back down at will at all. I then heard a soft, loving yet strong message come through. It was actually a chorus of a few sweet voices. I wasn't sure who they were. I couldn't see them, but I could feel and hear them. They were telling me, "Don't worry. Wait. The baby is getting ready to come to you. Just wait." For some reason, there was a knowing that it was going to be a boy. Now, as I received this message, I just embraced whatever energy I could feel resting upon my palms, the weight and warmth of lifting a newborn. It was so divine, it was so pure. Now, the gazing ended, but my palm was still up in the air. I could still feel tingling on my palms as it, eventually, very slowly made its way back down without my prompting. I prayed no one saw and thought I was crazy or had become possessed. I left the gazing, overwhelmed with excitement, yet laden with fear and doubt if this will ever eventuate. How can this even be foreseen when the relationship was still at its early stages? A year later, I was married to my amazing Richard, and the year after that, I was pregnant with a boy. This was a prayer answered, as assured by the message received during the gazing 2 years prior. So, Connie, Jim, I think of you every single day, because every time I look into the eyes of our little one, I am reminded of the experience in this gazing, as evidence that divine beings are already at work for us in a quantum zone. We just need to open ourselves up to receiving their love. So thank you, Connie. Thank you, Jim. With all my heart, we thank you for showing us how powerful this can be. Thank you for letting me experience this and share this with anyone who might come in your way and ask you what quantum gazing is about. Tell them it can do amazing things. I'm telling you, it can do amazing things. Thank you and God bless. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Jim. Love you all so much. I'd like to share with you how remote healing worked through quantum gazing and changed the lives of 2 families, mine and my cousins. Now, remote healing is where the person in question is not physically there at the gazing session with Connie, but successfully receives the healing energies from the session anyway. So in this case, it was my little Joshua and my nephew, who lives on the other side of Australia in Melbourne, who were cured of their ailments. So here's that story. Now, my little one was about 2.5 months old and suffering from severe colic. That's according to what the medical staff were thinking was happening. He also had a strain of jaundice that lingered on. He also had developed an umbilical hernia. So, yes, there was a lot going on. Meanwhile, in Melbourne, my cousin's son, who was 3.5 months old, he was suffering from severe reflux from birth. Now, the pediatrician said there was absolutely nothing that could be done to cure any of it, and that we needed to ride it out till the boys got closer to 12 months old. Despite basic medication, my little one would cry hysterically all the time, and it was just a lot more severe in the evenings. Also, his jaundice was still showing, but I could not expedite treatment via the public healthcare system. The appointment to see the specialist was until December, and it was October right at the moment, and it's a 2-month wait, and I have this child who is seems to be crying hysterically, agonizingly in pain. you know I was exhausted with an unsettled baby every night, and I was very, very worried about the effects of jaundice on his brain. Meanwhile, my cousin, back over in Melbourne, had to carry her crying baby upright literally 24/7, and she had no respite. If she laid him down, he would gag and regurgitate, throwing up on himself and into his nose, etc. He'd suffocate. She was constantly watching him while changing his clothes and hers of vomit, because there was so much of it, perpetually, all the time. She was also having to sleep upright every night with the baby in a baby carrier to help him with his reflux pain. So she never slept on a bed and had comfortable night's sleep. We were both first-time mothers. We had waited to become mothers, and we really wanted to enjoy our babies, but that wasn't quite the case when they came along. And no first-time mother could cope on her own like this for so long. My cousin especially, she was nearly losing it. And this is when I consulted with a close friend of ours, Catherine, and she suggested that both myself and Deepa, we prayed for our babies while the gazing was going on in Dunsborough. And Catherine offered to hold our pictures up in Dunsborough. Now, for a while now, I was actually receiving many indications from different sources to recite the Samasta Loka mantra every day. This is the universal peace mantra in Sanskrit, which goes Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. It means, may all the beings in all the universes be happy. At the end of this video, I'll explain why this was so powerful. Now, so it became obvious that this was what I had to recite when Connie did her gazing session in a town far, far away in Dunsborough. This small town was about 4 hours drive from me in Perth and about 4 hours flight from my cousin who was based in Melbourne. So I sat at my altar to pray at exactly the time Catherine said the gazing was scheduled to start in Dunsborough, and my cousin did the same in Melbourne. So as required, I started chanting this mantra by presenting my concerns and prayers specifically for the two little ones. But very soon my thoughts were no longer with these two babies alone. I started thinking about the children of the world. So many of them, those suffering in the hands of war, abuse, homelessness, etc. Those who had absolutely nowhere to turn. I was immensely feeling their pain, suffering, and their prayers. So as I chanted, I subconsciously moved on from my original subjects of my little one and my nephew, and I started praying for all, and not just my kin. Now, as this happened, the chanting of this mantra only got stronger. I was so overwhelmed by immense energy, which kept expanding and expanding. I had my rosary of 108 to keep track, but the energy just kept me going and going, charging forward. It was like a marathon with no room to rest. It was just going really fast. In fact, I lost track of how many rounds of this 108s that I actually ended up chanting. I was just not in control of this beautiful, energetic energy that engulfed me and just kept me charging forward. Um, so I simply flowed with this energy that went to a peak and it stayed there. And I chanted away ever so blissfully for quite a while. I had never felt anything like this before. I felt my body being pulled forward towards my altar as though it could take flight at any time and be sucked into the pictures of the gods and goddesses present in front of me. And then it dropped. You know, like a mobile phone signal, I suddenly felt it drop. In total, this energy flowed for about an hour and 15 minutes. It started gently, then it quickly peaked. It stayed there for a long time before it suddenly dropped off. I was just speechless at the end of this chanting, but was so wonderfully elevated by it. Now, later I checked with Catherine when she got back from Dunsborough. I checked, the start, the peaking, and the dropping off of the energy all coincided with the timing and flow of the gazing session held in Dunsborough. So I knew what I felt was the channeling of gazing energy miles away from Dunsborough. Though I wasn't physically there to look into Connie's eyes, but whatever it is that was happening when she was gazing was being felt right here at home in Perth. So it was a bit like being in a sci-fi movie, like The Matrix, but without Keanu Reeves. I felt so humbled to be granted this divine experience. It just assured me that our call to heal the babies were actually being processed. Now, just over a week later, my nephew's reflux had completely disappeared. My cousin is a doctor herself, and she was puzzled with the welcome change. My little one also stopped crying hysterically like he used to do in the evenings. And subsequent visits to the hospital in December, the pediatrician was just puzzled as to how Joshua's jaundice had disappeared so fast, because the blood test they took just before the gazing showed elevated levels of bilirubin. He had a specific strand which they expected to hang around for a lot longer, so they were actually gearing up to treat Joshua further in December, and now they didn't need to. And pediatrician's like, how did this happen? What's going on? Little Joshua also had an extraordinary growth spurt after this session, and he was no longer a little baby. He was born underweight and undersized, and he wasn't even in the growth chart to begin with. But after this gazing session, something happened, and he just grew into where he should be as now a 3-month-old child, a baby. He was actually on the growth chart, which was fantastic for us. This was such a relief. So finally, both my cousin and I were enjoying our babies, and we're still at awe how remote healing through quantum gazing worked. So, but most importantly, we learned how important it was to open our hearts to pray for all in need, and not just the person you are concerned about. Because by doing so, that genuine expansion in your heart becomes a light that can reach places and people beyond your imagination. As that mantra goes, may all beings in all the universes be happy. Its meaning is so profound. It's so profound that, by simply chanting it, we move from our personal self and radiate a prayer of love for the world around us. It takes us from the egoic little self, and its limited worldview, and it radiates from us global well being. It is a reminder that we are part of the universe and can positively, impact all of creation. So just imagine how beautiful this is, that we all have the potential power to bring and sustain goodness for everyone by just mere thought. Connie, Jim, thank you once again for letting us learn from this experience. The force is indeed with us all, always. Thank you so much, and God bless. I hope this day has greeted you with love and light. Now, today I'd like to share with you another medical miracle as a result of quantum gazing. And I need to give you a quick background about this. It's about our little boy, Joshua. Our son was born an IUGR baby, which means he stopped growing in the womb sometime after week 32. We were extremely lucky that he actually arrived into our arms without giving up. As it turned out, there was severe placental insufficiency. Now, he was only 2 kilos when he was born and had a host of blood-related issues which needed sorting, including a platelet transfusion and so many things. Now, after some time in neonatal ICU, he was well enough to return home, but he was still a tiny 2 kilos. When he was 2 months old, his belly button one day suddenly just popped outwards like a balloon. Now, we were told it was an umbilical hernia. And to give you an idea of how big it was, I'm going to do a bit of show and tell. So this is Joshua's favorite little bunny. He's had it since birth, and it's actually wearing some clothes that he wore at this time at the age of 2 months. This is how big he was. And the size of his hernia, the belly button that was protruding outwards was about this big. Yes, the size of a mineral water bottle cap. Now this is actually quite big compared to the size of his body, just to give you some indication. So that was quite significant, and so the doctors said that they would operate on it if it didn't retreat on its own by the time he turned 2. We could actually see his gut movement through this little protrusion. It was quite interesting but scary at the same time. Now, a gazing session was held in January of this year, by which time Joshua was 4 months old. I prayed for this protruding hernia to be healed so we could avoid surgery and another round of hospital dramas. I remember sharing with Connie on Skype on the day how powerful that day's gazing energy was. That day it felt as though all divine beings and ascended masters were already there, way in advance, waiting for the gazing to begin. And it felt like they lingered on even way after the gazing was over. So anyway, I surrendered my prayer in their hands so this hernia would just go away. We really needed this gone, please. We need this gone. We need this gone. Now, by the end of that week, believe it or not, after the gazing, by the end of that very week, Joshua's hernia had retreated completely. He also gained a lot of weight and height in the weeks that followed, and very quickly we were needing to upgrade his clothes to one size up again. The head pediatrician who normally sees Joshua wondered what magic trick had happened for this hernia to descend so fast. She was also amazed at his recovery since birth, saying that most IUGR babies only ever catch up, with their peers size-wise when they start primary school. So he was finally catching up with his milestones as well as a baby. So our little one was defying the odds in this category. When we first came home from hospital, we nicknamed him Peanut, because this was our little Peanut. This is how small he was. We now had to upgrade this to a little elephant. Never did I think I would have trouble carrying my little Peanut around. Everyone is still at awe how this underweight, ill baby had transformed so fast by this time, which we've had 2 gazing sessions, and this recent one healed his hernia and made him grow. So we can only owe this all to the workings of quantum gazing and God's grace that flows through it to everyone. So please don't give up. Miracles do happen. They did to us. And we pray they will continue to happen for everyone. Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you so much, Jim, for all the work that you do. We truly feel so blessed to be able to show others how gazing works and to never lose hope. Thank you, Sairam. Love and light to all of you.